Dear colleagues, it's really with great pleasure that Martin, Nathalie, and myself contribute this morning to the opening of the WILS International Week by presenting a new book on research in management science, on qualitative research in management science. This book is the result of the collective work of a team of 20 professors, members of the Business Science Institute. And for us, it really shows the collective energy of individual talents stimulated by the same project. In this book, we have 20 contributors and 10 chapters. This book pursues a doctoral training goal. It is intended for managers preparing a DBA at the Business Science Institute. In this book, our purpose is to show that qualitative research may be used in different business management disciplines, such as strategies, accounting and management control, marketing, information system, finance, human resources management, operations management, organizational theory. The book provides, with these 20 contributors, provides examples of qualitative research in various areas of management sciences. Okay, and here you have the summary, the table of contents. So chapter 1, the development of qualitative research in management science, provides an overview in qualitative research in management science. Chapter 2 is dedicated to the strategy factory, multi-case study by Christopher Torsey. Chapter 3, management control and consumer goods, participant observation by Professor Murray. Chapter 4, services marketing and the roles of co-customers, group interviews, critical incidents and observations by Professor Goodarzi. Chapter 5, information systems management and the appropriation of a new collaborative application, case study by J.C. Palud and Christopher Elidi-Kozak. Chapter 6, finance and entrepreneurships, it's the multi-case studies and interviews by Professor Irigoyen and Gandegnon. Chapter 7, internal mobility and talent, human resources management, from critical incidents to case studies by Professor Janan. Chapter 8, operations management and digital transformation, focus groups by Professor Ponsignon. Chapter 9, organizational theory, organization and actor network theory, and action research offered by Professor Peke and Nancy Saliba. And chapter 10, which is slightly different, offers a multidisciplinary qualitative research. That's the data co-data lab project, which is going to be introduced by some of the professors part of the co-data lab project. So that's what we are going to offer to you. Okay.
Hello, everybody. Nice to have you with us. So the first chapter, we wrote, Françoise, Martin, and I, to give a kind of overview of the development of qualitative research in management sciences. And the idea here is to explain a little bit how they came about and how they developed over time. So we start with a bit of a historical background, which summarizes how they were not prominent to start with compared to quantitative methods, and how they progressively emerged, and how they have grown and diversified. So it's kind of putting the qualitative methods in context in terms of management research. We also start kind of looking more into what's special about qualitative methods. And one important thing we argue is that they offer new ways of seeing. They allow researchers to develop original theoretical reflections, and that also has strong relevance for contemporary organizations and challenges because they're very close to the reality of organizations and close to the actors and the managers. We also then move to describing a bit more in detail the differences between qualitative and quantitative methodologies. And we highlight particularly the fact that qualitative methodologies, by contrast to quantitative methodologies, are reflexive, cyclical, and iterative. They are embedded in social reality. They concentrate on a specific context. They go deep. They tend to use a range of data, non-traditional data, and they enable the formulation of new and sometimes even iconoclastic research questions. We then illustrate the singularity of qualitative approach through 3 examples, one on a particular research topic. So comparing, contrasting how organizational culture would be researched by a quantitative researcher and by a qualitative researcher, and also how 2 research methods, interviews and case studies, would be used in more or less qualitative ways and very qualitative ways. So we try to kind of make it clear that a qualitative research we see as a quest rather than just a set of techniques to apply. It's more, as described earlier, it's more iterative, reflexive, and cyclical. And we also, as well as providing some recommendations at the end for DBA candidates, we also discuss a little bit how mixed methods, when making use of qualitative methods, should really be very aware of the reflexive nature of qualitative research and the range of possibilities. Qualitative research tends to be, can be used in very imaginative ways. You can adapt and kind of mix and have very imaginative research designs, but also with a qualitative intent, and accept the nature of qualitative research, this difference and its singularity, in also imaginative ways when combined with quantitative research. So, for instance, digging deeper into the meaning of quantitative data. So there could be a short quantitative phase and a deep qualitative phase to go deeper, rather than just having it as an add-on, which is sometimes the case. So that's chapter 1, which kind of describes the nature and the use and the potential of qualitative research. And then if we move now to the next 9 chapters, which illustrate this in different disciplines, we move to chapter 2, which is about strategy, and Martin will present it for us. Professor Torset is not available. He's from University Paris-Créteil. Martin, over to you.
Thank you, Nathalie. Christophe wrote chapter 2. It's called The Strategy Factory. It's a multi-case study. So his paper is about an investigation of the role of individuals in collective strategic processes, but focusing on actors who are not typically identified as strategists in their own organization. This possibly creating tensions or creating a situation in which those typically not involved don't feel that their voices can be taken into account and influence the course of the strategy process. So the research question is really how and why do the different strategic levels contribute to the strategic thinking of their organization? And really, this is a strategy research based on textual data from interviews and analyzed in two different ways. First, a quantification of the data, and second, the content analysis. It's a multi-case approach that includes 83 interviews conducted in several organizations. So there was several participants from many hierarchical positions within each organization. So one phase allows the identification of regularities in order to categorize and identify configurational patterns of the processes. And there's a case study phase to deepen the analysis of the identified configurations by analyzing the rationalities of the actors and contextual determinants. So really, the results provide an overview about three interrelated dimensions as part of the collective process of individuals not typically involved in the strategy process. First is the differentiated roles of managers, middle managers, and operational managers. Second, the main modes of decentralization in large companies. And third, really looking at the determinants of decentralization. So hopefully you will really enjoy this piece. I had the opportunity to review it, and I think it's quite an intriguing investigation, and it provides new insights on this very topic. Thank you.
Next, in the field of management control, we've got Professor Mouret from University of Polynesia.
Yeah, thank you very much. So first of all, I would like to thank warmly Françoise Martin and Nathalie for giving me the opportunity to narrate what I have been through when I was doing field work, as I was doing my PhD at the time. This is, you know, so I am in management accounting and management control, and in this line of research, qualitative research are not mainstream. So, I mean, when you read papers about management control, you don't see a lot about what's going on in the everyday life of managers. You don't see how numbers are being engaged in order to relate to other participants, and you don't know what numbers tell managers and how they use it in order to do a lot of different things, such as convince or sometimes relate to other participants within the realm of very ambiguous and changing and fast evolving social situation. So in a world, social situations are just neglected in the mainstream literature. And that's the reason why I wanted to do something about it, because as most of DBA doctorants, I also had been working in different organizations in the past. Before joining academia, I was a management accountant at Unilever. I was also working at Carrefour as management accountant in the human resources department. And then I was a director for developing the performance of the supply chain processes across Europe. So I was really interested in studying more in detail how numbers are being used in order to frame and to make sense of what's going on in specific meetings where you have business managers from different companies trying to make sense of what's going on and trying to also influence the course of their cooperation. So in that sense, numbers are not seen as just being a mere reflection of a reality that would be existing independently from people interacting. Numbers should be viewed as semiotic mediations, which help managers make sense of their world and act upon it to transform situations which might be at sometimes complex. So in order to do that, I really performed a very intense fieldwork activity, because I stayed more than 14 months within the Carrefour group, and I was part of a very complex new cooperative approach between Carrefour and 16 other international suppliers. Of course, our relationships are very ambiguous, and they wanted to do something else, something new. They wanted to be partners. But everybody knows that it's not that easy because they have different interests. They share different cultural backgrounds, and of course these meetings are extremely dangerous because everything could go awry very rapidly. So I stayed more than 14 months participating in 100-odd type of meetings, and also contributing to the project itself by producing a lot of numbers like scorecards, budget, and so on. And so it was for me the opportunity, you know, to really try to feel and sense the life of these managers. And that's why in the chapter I describe in detail the participant observation that I conducted that owes much to Goffman's view on what he calls participant observation, which is something very constraining because you have to subject yourself, your own personality and body, to the contingencies that play upon the life of these organizational actors. Of course, I came with a key idea that is, I describe in detail with the concept of chameleonic researcher, what was at the end of the day, my activities on the field. And it embraces three main features. The first is that you have to be within the system that you want to study if you want really to get a clear understanding of what's going on, if you want to be able to understand the cultural aspects of the system of interaction that you seek to understand. The second key idea and takeaway is that it's not just about getting data. It's also about, co-constructing the meaning of the situation that these managers face when doing this. And the third consideration is also to say that the researcher is in danger when you have to expose yourself for so long to a very complex system of a social system, and that you need to be very careful as to how you're going to position yourself when engaging with these people. I hope you're going to find it interesting. And of course, I think it could be very useful for DBA doctorants because we don't have so many testimonies of what it is really to engage with such a very demanding fieldwork activity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Damien. The chapter is very useful in terms of describing yourself in the field and how you engage with it. So it's got very interesting insights about reflexivity and engagement. Next, we have Professor Goudarzi from IAE Lyon on in marketing.
Yes, thank you, Nathalie. I'm very happy to have the chance, and thank you for that, to present a chapter about qualitative research and to represent in a way the marketing. Marketing and just as finance were famous for a quantitative approach, but I mean, we have a lot of purely qualitative approach in marketing, and I'm really happy to represent this stream within the book. So what we have done in this article that was published in Recherche et Application Marketing, that is in French and in English actually, is that we wanted to study how the other customers, when you are in an experience and in interaction with an organization, how the other customers influence you. So we call these other customers co-clients, co-customers, and basically we wanted to explore that. So for me, as soon as you use the word explore in research, some way it puts you in a qualitative methods and a qualitative perspective. So the subject was studied, but we wanted to have a more exhaustive view of all the customers' roles and all the co-clients' roles. And I think what I really wanted to insist in the chapter and is that we used a research design that was crossing different qualitative methods. And I think this is what is really specific in this chapter. So we crossed what we call an ethnographic approach with some observation by the researcher and some journey notebook by customers that were supposed to tell what they do during the experience. I forgot to tell you that our main field was a train trip. So the idea behind it is that during a 3 hours of train trip, you have maybe 1 minute of interaction with employees. And there are lots of research about the influence of employee on the customers. And you interact during almost 3 hours, almost all the experience with other customers. So we've done some observation. We asked 2 customers to do some observation and take notes of that. And then we've done some critical incidents, asking the customers to tell us about amazing experience in train and awful experience in train. And we were able to show that the co-clients were an important source of these critical incidents. And we've done some group meeting because there's a social elements in our subjects. So basically, we triangulate the methods and then what we have done also that is not in the slide is that we try to check if the roles and all the co-clients role that we identified, we could identify in another context. And we have done some observation and interviews in a James Club. So basically, the most important idea of this paper in terms of qualitative method is the value of triangulation of methods. So this is what I really wanted to insist on. So I'm very happy to be part of the project. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Kian. What's great about your chapter and your research is how you kind of design those different bits of method and how you put them together. And that's really, that's what I meant when I was talking about imaginative design.
Thank you.
The world is your oyster. Next, we have a chapter on information systems management, and we have Christophe Elidi-Kozak from the University of des Antilles, who's here to talk about his chapter with Jesse, who's from EM Strasbourg.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and thank you very much to Martin, Françoise, and Nathalie for giving us the opportunity to present this research in the book. So thank you very much for that, and we are very happy to meet you, everyone, today. So this chapter aims at understanding the socio-emotional processes that are related with IT adoption, but at the micro level. So we are working here in information systems, interested into the processes of adoption of information systems, individual adaptation to information systems. And one of the motivations for this research is that we still need some further information into how unique patterns of system usage develop and evolve over time, and especially to have a view on the socio-emotional processes involved into those processes. So for this, we rely on the concept of bricolage. Our research questions are, to what extent does the concept of bricolage contribute to a better understanding of the appropriation of new technologies by social actors? And how do bricolage processes contribute to the appropriation of new software application by those actors? And in this, bricolage is defined as a practice that consists of individuals' adaptations to new and destabilizing situations, and it's very close to the adaptation, individual adaptation concept. So more in particular, the objective of the chapter is to explore the uses in individual adaptations to a new collaborative tool, and to introduce the construction of a qualitative interpretive study from its problematization to its implementation in the research field. So the objective was really to offer a living example of the construction of qualitative work so that researchers, managers also can further understand the principles of building those kind of research, and especially when we are working with technologies. So the theoretical foundations are mainly those of bricolage theorizing from Levi-Strauss and from Sibora, who evolved in the field of information systems as well. The empirical investigation is an interpretive case, qualitative study that has been conducted in a large French insurance company. So this study is part of a larger project. This part was a prior qualitative work, and then we continued this with a more quantitative longitudinal work. So we conducted 30 interviews that were fully transcribed, fully coded and analyzed in order to understand the bricolage processes. So in terms of the contribution, what can we expect from this article? So we examine the consequences of a new collaborative tool implementation. So it is the suite, the application suite of Google. It was Google Apps at that time, the name of the collaborative suite. And we examine adoption, usage, affective reactions to the introduction of this software. The article, the chapter helps enriching our understanding of IT adoption in the workplace. To emphasize two different profiles of people, we find the bricoleurs who are who make sense of the technologies with the means that they have at hand, while we have also another profile, the profile of the engineers who make sense of the technology, but mainly the way it is expected to be used by the designers of the technology. And so we show how the behavior, the emotional reactions contribute together to new and different patterns of usage. And so we also show how bricolage occurs even when specific resources are not available to the users. And finally, this chapter offers a rich qualitative work and where we demonstrate the different steps of this work to researchers, managers. So thank you very much again for giving us the opportunity to introduce this work in the book.
Thank you, Christophe. The other thing I can add about this chapter is that it's extremely useful in the way it develops its whole coherence, methodological coherence, the links between the positioning and the literature, which is very clear, the theorization, the methodological choice, and then the data and the analysis. So it's extremely useful, and it's perhaps the most difficult one for new researchers to come to terms with and to kind of get through and explain and formulate for themselves as they go through it. And also there are managerial implications because you come up with some interesting profiles which may help managers in managing the introduction of new technologies. So thanks for the coherence aspect, particularly.
Thank you very much.
Between theory and data. And then we have Professor Irigoyen and Dr. Gandignon. I think we have Dr. Gandignon here who can talk to us about in finance.
Everyone.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to start with thanking the editors for associating Professor Irigoyen and myself to this book. And our contribution is similar to the chapter 3 of Damien Murray, and it's about changing the view about the research in finance, changing the point of view and the way to conduct research in finance. As you know, in finance, traditionally, the research are the large part of the research are quantitative and using quantitative methodologies. The difference in here is that in our research we do not focus on the variables, the variables like how can I say it? Often in financial research, we used to take variables, and we conduct the research according to what variables are telling us, the story variables are telling us. So here, what we want to do is to give the feel for the peoples, and to try to understand how they work, how they do. And especially in entrepreneurial finance, we choose to focus on the managers and to study how they think, how they act by in the way of financial decision. So what we want to do in this contribution is to show step by step the way we can conduct qualitative research in entrepreneurial finance, and then we choose to embrace the qualitative methodology using case study. We choose to study case of many managers of small companies that take financial decision. So the purpose of this work through this qualitative research is to take account of how these people in the top of small companies try to take financial decision, how they use to take this decision, and to get advice from these studies for others. So in this way, we try to study several cases with several interviews with the managers, and we associated to these interviews expert interviews and collecting documents to show how they use to make the financial decision. And by this way, we can conclude that making research in finance using a qualitative methodology is something that's possible, and that's what we choose to show in this contribution, and that's briefly how I can present this work we propose. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Medici. It's very useful to have a chapter which approaches finance from a qualitative perspective, because it's very unusual. So it's very significant, and we're very thankful that you produced this, which is based on your thesis, I think. So thank you very much for offering it to us. It's very valuable. For chapter 7, we have Professor Janin, who's from University Paris-Saclay and in the field of human resource management.
Hello. Thank you very much, Martin, Nathalie, and Françoise, for giving me the opportunity to present my research in this chapter, and also to represent HR, human resource management. As my English is not very fluent, I thought that an image could sum up my vision of making a PhD So this is this image. Finally, how to unravel bias, ideas, professional experience that you have in mind, and how to be reflexive and be able to build a theory. So I will explain and develop in the following slide. So my PhD research was about reflecting, thinking over internal mobility and talent. How can internal mobility change positions within a company, can foster talent development? This was a very important topic for me because before starting this PhD, I had been working for 13 years in a large banking group, and I had made some change of jobs. So that was the first point, the genesis of the HRM research. First, I observed that the link between internal mobility and talent development was not that obvious. A lot of people were changing jobs, but were not developing really their capacities, their abilities. So this topic was really a subject of debate. Then in this chapter, I explained the role of 4 critical incidents in shaping my problematic. 4 critical incidents who are part of a reflexive process as a former manager. I also explained how I conducted my PhD, reading literature, interviewing people, reading again, and in an abductive research process. And this abductive research process is the process of theorizing steps by step. Another part of my chapter answers the question, why choosing a qualitative approach in HRM? So I explained first that, in fact, there are a lot of methods, a lot of tools at the disposal of the researcher. And I completely assume the methodological opportunism that was pointed out by Feyerabend. And Feyerabend says, you can choose anything method. Everything is good if you want to make science progress. Then I also explained that choosing your approach, your methodology, leads you to reflect about which HRM model you want to choose. And I invite PhD students to read Julienne Brabé's book about 3 models of HRM. There is a first model that explains that there is a convergence between social and economic dimensions in the company. And at the end of the 3 models, there is another one that says, oh, there are always tensions and harmony is not possible in the long term. So you have to think about that when you start HRM. My chapter then presents the fieldwork time, how I conducted interviews in a win-win approach between the interviewee and the researcher, and then how I transcribed these interviews. And then I explain how I conducted the results analysis in two ways. First, a variable approach. I was centered about motivational process and learning process. And then I also analyzed my results through a case approach because I conducted interviews in 3 major companies that I have chosen specifically because they were very different. There was a public company, there was a big bank, and a leader company in the beauty sector. Finally, I will end my presentation, and this is the end also of this chapter, with 4 concluding recommendations for the DBA candidate. First, you have to set up a proper project management. you have to define very well your subject, your working time, and that's difficult because you are working, and some resources for your project. The second idea, second recommendation is that it's a long road and don't be discouraged. When I started my PhD, I had bought an old house and I wanted to renovate it. And my little son, who was 5 years old, told me, "Hey, look, Mom, it will be more difficult to make your PhD and longer than to renovate the house." Then I want to underline that the thesis is an experience of the unexpected. And that can be quite difficult for professionals who have a strong legitimacy. They have been working for such a long time in their job, in their company. Making research is to learn to give up some certainties. You don't know if the road you will take will be the good one. So it can be a source of stress, but don't be afraid. And finally, my last recommendations would be that a good PhD dissertation is a finished dissertation. It will not be perfect, but at some point, you will have to end it and maybe continue it through publications or books or in another way. But a good dissertation is a finished one. That's now finished for me. Thank you again for giving me this chance to present my research and this reflexive process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne. And the key word here is reflexivity. You illustrate really brilliantly the cyclical nature, adaptive nature of the process between the field and the conceptualization.
Thank you.
And next we have Professor Ponsignon, who's from Bordeaux and who's done a chapter on operations management. And he's not available today, so Martin will present the chapter. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you, Natalie. Frédéric's chapter is on operations management and digital transformation. And his chapter illustrates the use of focus groups. Typically in operations management, it's dominated by a rationalist approach in terms of research. And what Professor Ponsignon argues is that operational stress management in complex companies and supply chains can't be easily summarized by general conclusions. So his research question was to explore and understand how the quality management function can play a role and what role it can play in supporting a company's digital transformation process. So he used focus groups to describe and explain different points of view, as well as to allow for in-depth exploration of each perspective. So he had a predetermined question that was open, that was flexible, and could welcome new ideas. In the end, he conducted 9 focus groups, about 90 minutes each, with 63 quality managers who were recruited through the AFNA, which is a French normalization organization. So the group discussions were led by 2 researchers, and they were divided in 2 separate phases of about 45 minutes. First, they used the brainwriting technique, which allows participants to put down ideas for a period of about 20 minutes, and participants share those ideas with their neighbors, and their neighbors can add new ideas given what they see as their colleagues' ideas that they provided to the process. Following this, at phase 2, individual statements are reviewed collectively by the participants to the group, sorted and organized into affinity diagrams, and then discussed by participants further for another 45 minutes. The results from the data collection process in the focus groups were analyzed through grounded theory and was further validated with participants with follow-up interviews. The key results that arise from the research: first, the development and acquisition of a unique set of structural and contextual skills, and provided a roadmap comprising 4 stages and 9 key activities. In terms of the use of the grounded theory, just to go back on this point, he used the Gioia method, which allows the consolidation and the actual coding of initial codes emerging from the group discussions, and then the consolidation into those 9 main key activities. So really, the results, they provide quality management and assurance managers with an unprecedented opportunity to rethink their work and how they contribute to the current and future success of organizational transformation with an organization. Thank you. Nathalie, over to you.
And thank you, Martin. It's a great chapter in describing in quite a detailed way how focus groups can work, and having the brain writing technique is also quite fun. And it's got managerial implications, great impact. Chapter 9 in organization theory from Professor Péqueux and Saliba from Paris. Over to you, Nancy, I think.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Very pleased to be among researchers and professors today, and to be given this opportunity to collaborate with Professor Yvon Péqueux in writing this chapter. Well, this paper serves as, if you can go to the next slide, please. You can see. Thank you. So this paper serves as an illustration of the use of a qualitative approach based on the actor network theory that was first introduced by Callon, Latour, and Akridge, which tackles the place of a theory, a methodology, and a method at the same time. While our research concerns social networks of household waste circulation and organizational learning, well, we were observing the situation of the waste crisis in Beirut since 2015. Well, from a theoretical point of view, actor network theory is a transdisciplinary positioning insofar as it is its original focal point, as we said here, is innovation, because we were studying initiatives innovating in the waste, in different types of waste in Lebanon since the crisis started and generated in Lebanon. Second, actor network theory is a methodology because it is considering waste as a non-human actor, and at the same time, human actors that were all interacting and finding solutions to this waste crisis. And finally, it is a matter of method, since it proposes a way of interpreting the discourses, observing these situations, and at the same time, interpreting professional and personal experiences. In addition to the interweaving between A and T, which is actor network theory, and organizational learning, which is an important theoretical and empirical issue as well, well, the illustration developed in this text address from a conceptual point of view, a major issue, which is the question of sustainable development through the double register of waste and entrepreneurship. If you can go to the last slide, please. Well, we have articulated and used a grid that is interestment model that leads to the interpretation of each of the situations that we have taken and observed in accordance with the stages of the theory. All of these situations were described are the result of a participative observation, while articulated in an action research as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting too to have an action research chapter, which is informed by a very strong methodology such as actor network theory. Thank you. And finally, we have the last chapter on co-data, and I think Professor Ferrer or Professor Lavastre will present.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Nathalie, Françoise, and Martin for giving us the opportunity to participate towards this chapter. We are pleased to introduce our chapter, Professor Olivier Lavastre and I. The other authors, Professor Aurélie Dudésert, Florence Laval, Jean Moscarola, and Michel Calica, apologize for not being with us this morning because, in fact, they are at the same time presenting our work in another session. So our chapter is a feedback on a methodological innovation, on a very original research design. In this chapter, we describe behind the scenes of this innovative experiment. We started with the aim of understanding the impact of the crisis on management, and in order to be able to support companies. We wanted to have a managerial impact based on scientific rigor, and we succeeded in quite limited time with a sustained rate from the beginning to the end. So this is the story of 6 researchers, all members of a business science institute from different discipline of management science. For example, some colleagues work mostly on supply chain management, others on marketing and information systems, or on human resource management, on management of information systems, or on strategic management. We were also different because in our previous research, we used to have different methodological approaches and different epistemological positions. Moreover, we were geographically widespread from Grenoble, Poitiers, Annecy, Lyon, Évry, Réunion Island in the Indian Ocean. And some of us did not know the other members of the team at the beginning of the project. But we have a common goal, that is, I repeat, to observe together the impacts of the COVID-19 health crisis on management in order to support companies. And we used a unique and common analysis tool. So from March 2020 to February 2021, we carried out a wide range of surveys, narrative survey, visual images, questionnaire, focus group, and we analyzed the data, and we collectively and individually produced works with managerial impacts. And this chapter explains how we proceeded, how we used this common base, and we also provide some illustrations of the results we obtained. So now let Professor Olivier Lavastre explain how we appreciate this experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Very quickly, it was an amazing experience. It was a collective and amazing experience because, as Professor Fouard said, we are all different and we work together according to our availability and to our goals. And it was a great pleasure to work together. It is an experiences along the way, like in French, chemin faisant, because we start from one point together and from the different periods, we choose what was the next step in our research. So the chapter details the cheminement, the path of this work, and we are collectively work with visualization tools proposed by Sphinx, and these visualization tools allowed us to create an intermediate object of dialogue, and with this object we can work together on this subject. So thank you.
Thank you both.
Okay, so we arrived nearly at the end of this session. So as you notice, I mean, defending and illustrating qualitative research in management sciences is the editorial line of this collective book. So dear contributors, dear authors, thank you very much for your commitment to the project. We also want to thank very warmly Professors Beaulieu, Kalika, and Martinet, who are in charge of the Business Science Institute book collection, for their commitment to the book and for their entrepreneurial spirit, which is really a trademark of the Business Science Institute. And last but not least, we hope our audience will enjoy reading these 10 chapters. We hope managers, DBA candidates find this book useful. This book is for you and to help you to find your own specific way in management research and in qualitative research. Thanks a million.